On this edition of Larry the Golf Guy, we have a holiday weekend treat for our listeners as we post this on the eve of Memorial Day weekend, and that is a conversation with the great David Bonsall of the RNA. And David has had really a remarkable career at the RNA in so many roles, being on the Rules Committee, which he chaired from 2015 to 2019, Championship Committee, other positions. He led the RNA team when the RNA worked with the USGA on modernizing the rules of golf from 2012 to 2019, has refereed dozens of major championships, Walker Cups, amateur championships, pro tournaments. And this is all while he's had a wide-ranging commercial career. He was a partner and led the capital markets practice at the Magic Circle firm of Freshfields in London before becoming an investment banker. And so David's really achieved quite a bit. We talked with David about how he got his start in the game, his playing career at college, how he got involved with the RNA, and what the USGA and the RNA were trying to achieve with modernizing the rules of golf, and also his views on equipment regulation. I think you'll see what a thoughtful fellow he is, and this was really a great conversation. And of course, we end it with going through what was his remarkable experience of being the chief referee for the final group at the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale in 2017. Of course, what made this remarkable is, hopefully our listeners will remember, is Jordan Spieth on the 13th hole and hitting this drive 80 to 100 yards right towards the driving range there, finding the ball, all the different rulings that were involved. If you watched the Open that year, it probably was 20 minutes or so of elapsed time and to sort everything out. And of course, Jordan made an incredible bogey with the penalty stroke, and then just went birdie, eagle, birdie, birdie, and ended up winning. It was really remarkable. And David, as the chief referee walking with Jordan, had more than a front row seat. He was intimately involved in making all those rulings. So we talk about that, which was a lot of fun. So all of that and much more on this edition of Larry the Golf Guy with David Bonsall. Well, welcome to another edition of Larry the Golf Guy. And I am so pleased today to welcome to the program David Bonsall, who is served the RNA in many capacities, which we'll talk about, and a member of the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews for, I guess, 30 years now, 30 plus years now. David, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us today.
Not at all. Great pleasure, Larry.
So just as I often like to do to our listeners, is just to give folks a little context. Can you talk about where you grew up and kind of how you were first introduced to this great game?
Sure. I was born in Kingston, which is Kingston-on-Thames, just a little south of London and Richmond, and grew up in Surrey, a little place called Playgate or Oxshott. Quite a lot of Chelsea footballers
Yeah.
lived there, but not 50, 60 plus years ago. And I went to a really good prep school, series of prep schools in that area where we played a lot of sport, our football, association football, soccer, rugby and cricket. And I suppose I first started playing golf really more with my mother than my father.
Interesting.
Um, my father had learnt when he was a younger man, but he didn't really play very much, working too hard as an attorney as well, like both of us became. And it was my mother who was a school teacher, and she liked playing. And so there was a nice little 9-hole course, which we advocate quite a lot now with the
Yes.
RNA. playing
Yeah.
the shorter form of the game,
Right.
less time, more enjoyable, easier going in a way. It was a little 9-hole course called Clare Hill, and we started playing there, and I enjoyed that. When I went to Winchester College, my high school in your terms, public school in our terms, which of course means it's private. Um, British humour, I'm afraid, and language. Um, I was what, 13, and my very first term, we went. A friend and I went cycling from the school to the golf course, which is called Hockley Golf Course. And it is near a place called Twyford. It's on the Chalk Downs outside Winchester, the city. And we had each been to the school sports shop and bought 12 golf balls, a box of golf balls.
Okay.
Well, when I say we bought, of course, both of us put them on the bill for our respective fathers to pick up
Yes. Yeah.
the anyway, in the course of this first round at Hockley Golf Club, he got through his entire 12 balls with about six left to play. And I had about three left, I think, had to lend him one. And we both squeaked to the end with, I think, our
That's
last
great.
ball each um, in a flurry of shots that definitely broke the century mark. Uh, Anyway, I enjoyed it, and I did get lessons from a very good teacher called Norman Quigley, who was at Burr Hill. Norman was a very good teaching pro, quite a good player in his day, and taught a lot of very good players in the years when I was taking lessons from him. Um, and he talked to me about things that I didn't understand then and don't really understand now, like pronation and
Yeah.
supination.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, rolling your wrist, basically.
Right.
But
Right.
it would have helped if he'd used those terms. I might have got it a bit better. Um, but gradually, when I was at school, handicap came down from, 24 to 8, I think, when I left Winchester, aged just 17. And then I went up to Cambridge University the following year. Our system was very good. You actually had sort of 9, 10 months off. And he went traveling around the world, did
Oh,
various,
wow.
grew up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've been in school for, many, many years, is a very good thing. You learn about yourself, you become a bit more of an adult. And yes, I suppose I played a bit of golf in the summer, but I didn't really focus on that going up to Cambridge. So I was still off 8 when I went up to Cambridge, and I got really lucky because I didn't play very well in the trials, but I then got picked due to injury of others to
Ah.
play for the university in a match against the Oxford and Cambridge Golfing Society, who were visiting to play their match against the university team for a weekend in October at our wonderful golf course, Royal Worlington and Newmarket Golf Club, near Mildenhall, outside Newmarket. And excuse me, let me have a
Yeah,
couple of.
please. No, please.
And I got picked and to play on the Sunday as a reserve, and lost in the morning, but in the afternoon had a splendid round. And our match, it all came down to our match
Oh,
as the
wow.
last
Wow.
game.
Yeah.
And you will have heard of a chap called Gerald Micklem,
Yeah.
who was the great administrator, a great player, but a great administrator, and seriously important in golf in the 60s and 70s. Anyway, it so happened that Gerald went to the same school, Winchester College. So he was watching me
Mm.
playing in this match. And he asked my partner on the 17th green what the state of the match was. And I had about a 10-footer downhill that I had to hold to stay alive in the match. So luckily, well, Gerald said, he had a very distinctive voice, he'll hold it. He's a Wycomist. Someone who went to college.
Right.
So I heard this, and of course, oh God, even more pressure as if I knew that. Anyway, I did hold it, and then Gerald said, "David, I'll take your clubs." So I went. The ninth tee is a walk back up and right. So Gerald, the doyen of amateur golf, and one of the most important people in golf, is carrying my golf club
Wow. Yeah.
down the 18th at Royal Wellington, and everybody in the crowd is, "Who's this guy? What? How come Gerald Mifflin is caddying, as it were, for this
Right.
guy?"
Right.
Anyway, I had a good tee shot. My partner slightly dunched it onto the front of the green, and the oppo were about 20 feet away. So I have a 30-footer for a birdie three, and I hole it. And they miss. So we get a half, and the whole match, Cambridge, either halves or wins. I can't remember. But anyway, it was the pivotal moment in getting me to play university golf, because
Wow.
I then got picked to play for the second team. I got into it. I then began to know all these people. There was an incredibly strong group of players who'd come up the year before, many of them off scratch. And the result was that I realized how fabulously enjoyable university golf could be, whether in the second team or the Blues team, the university first team, and made it my mission, basically, to play for the university. I was 2 years in the second team, 2 years in the first team, and it is one of the things that has transformed my life.
For sure. I got to ask you, I'm interested in here listening you describe it. Is foursomes as opposed to the normal way that you guys would play competitively at college?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in college, typically it was foursomes in the morning and then singles in the afternoon.
Got it.
And these matches were just amazing. So I remember one match for the second team, the Stymies, going to a place called Fleet, North Hants. And in the morning, we'd played against the captain of the club, who was hopeless, and his partner, who had valiantly tried to get a point, but we had won on the last green. So soup and sandwiches, and then I'm sent out top with this other guy called Major David Blair. Now, at the time, I had no idea who Major David Blair was, really, save that I had seen him playing for Harrow in the Halford Hewitt, which is a big public schools event, biggest amateur event in the world, actually. 640 players get to the starting line, and only 10 are happy at the end of the day. Anyway, I'd seen David Blair playing for Harrow. Harrow had won that year. Winchester had lost in the quarterfinals. My debut in that event, which again, like university golf, has been one of the most important things in my life. And so talking with this chap, David Blair, I said, obviously it was great for Harrow to win the Halford Hewitt. Oh, yes. How many times have you played and won? He said, I've been playing in it for 40 years, I
Wow.
must have
Wow.
won it 10 times or 8 times or something
Yeah.
like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, great. And I said, well, you must have played quite a bit of, county golf. Oh, yes. Well, at least 40 years. Well, how about national golf? Oh, of course, I played for England for at least 20 years. Oh, okay. And well, perhaps Did you play the Walker Cup? Oh, yes, I think three Walker Cups.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Anyway, by this time, I at least started all square on the first tee, but I'm probably about five down by now. And then I ventured to ask him whether he played in the Open. And he said, "Oh, yes, I think I played nine times in the Open." And I
Wow.
and
Wow.
I said, "Well, but you're an amateur." Yes, of course. And did you do any good? And he said, "Well, I think I was ninth one year."
Wow.
Anyway, of course, I lost 7 and 6. But these are some of the encounters that you
Sure.
had at university, playing Michael Benalek, Sir
Oh,
Michael.
famous, right. Sir Michael Panath, right.
Indeed, someone whom I got to know and could count as a
Sure.
friend. His children are friends with me now, and we had no idea how lucky we were. Um, and the arrangement was that you basically left Cambridge very early, and Oxford had the same arrangements. You left very early on Saturday morning, you get to a club, you play your matches, morning, good lunch, afternoon, singles. Then you probably went to someone's home and stayed with them, and they looked after
Wow.
you. And he
Wow.
did the same thing again on Sunday, get driven back to your university on Sunday evening, absolutely exhausted after
Sure.
72 holes and a lot of socializing, and work away for the week when you're not practicing golf or playing football or cricket or something else. So they were great times, I would have to
Oh,
say.
yeah. Sounds wonderful. So you have all that experience, and I'm just curious. I know you've alluded to this before. You end up going to law, and go to Freshfields. One of course the Magic Circle firms, one of the great firms in the world, and you're off on your career. But I'm sort of curious. At any point, as you're having all these great experiences in college, in golf at the university, did you ever think, gee, maybe I want to do some sort of career in golf, or were you always sort of focused on, no, I love the game, but I'm going to pursue my profession?
Well, I recognized I was nothing like as good as many other people in the team. Um, I was fortunate that the players around me were very good. I learnt from so many of them. We once had lesson with John Jacobs, who came and sort
Oh,
of coached
wow. Famous
in
John
the
Jacobs, yes.
indeed. But the recognition was that although we had a very full schedule, we weren't the same quality as college golfers in the US, by repute at any rate. And I certainly knew I was nothing like as good as other people in the teams I played in. Um, and that was a good thing because it meant it never occurred to me. Um, and I do think that it's an incredibly tough life. I mean, I
Yes,
have
I agree.
been and obviously played with, I still play matches against universities. I mean, I'm giving 45 years to, some of these, 40 years at any rate, to a lot of these players. And yet, and some of them do think of that as a career, but it's a very demanding career. Um, and when I've refereed lots of tour events, you
Sure.
see young lads, and they're full of hope on a Thursday morning, and they're absolutely just so depressed on Friday afternoon when they haven't
Right.
made a cut. They've got no money. They've spent money for the week with the caddy and the accommodation, the travel, and they got to try and qualify the next week for the next event and try and get a paycheck somehow. It's brutal. It is brutal.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you go off, as I was saying, you go to law, you go fresh fields, you have this tremendous career, you go to investment banking. I mean, I was interested to see, worked in the asset-backed world. I mean, securitizations. I was a tax lawyer for 35 years at Latham's, and structured finance and securitizations is part of what I did from the tax side. So I was interested to see that. My point, though, is that, those are all very time demanding things. But you were able to stay involved in the game and serve the RNA. So I'm curious kind of how you were able to balance all that. Obviously, you balanced it very successfully, but I'm just curious how you were able to do all that because it's impressive.
Well, thank you. The playing of the game I attribute to the fact my wife was very accommodating. Um, and she was really very good about it because clearly weekends were very valuable. And indeed, as you will know from your legal experience, many weekends are taken up with work, at
Yeah,
least me. So it was, she was very kind. But we also, some of the matches were sort of weekends away into the country, meeting people, getting to know other wives, couples. And although she's never really played much, she enjoyed those occasions. And they gave us a love of being out in the countryside as well,
yeah,
which ultimately meant that we've had homes outside London, and they're very important homes for us, particularly in the context of golf, which we'll get
sure.
to.
Yeah,
Um, the work was very demanding. You will say that you worked hard, and I certainly did at Freshfields. But becoming an investment banker, you stepped up a lot. I
yeah.
worked far harder as an investment banker than I did as a lawyer, and I didn't think that would be possible. But, uh, but it is because when you are a banker, they're your deals.
Right.
You're not working on somebody else's deals. You're not taking the instructions and transforming it into a deal that works. You are creating a deal. You're doing this yourself. You're seeing an opportunity. You're working with a client, but you're making something happen really that wouldn't otherwise have happened at all. And in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, it was a very, very exciting world where so many new things were being done and created, not all of them brilliant, but they were transformative.
Right.
And, and to be part of that and to be able to pioneer that was a great privilege, let
Yeah.
alone fun, even if it was hard work. And of course, it came with a few material pluses as well. Um, but the so I actually stopped full-time investment banking when I was only 43. Um, and that was when I left CIBC. And indeed, it was then that Ian Pattinson, who is the current captain of the RNA and was then chairman of the RNA Rules Committee, he wrote to me in his beautiful handwriting and asked if I would consider taking the rules exam and joining his committee.
Wow. I'm sorry. What year was this, David, did you say?
This would have been 2001, in
Okay,
fact.
because I was going to ask you how you got with the RNA. Okay.
So I'd been a member in since '94. So I've been a member
94, right.
7 years. I actually had rather a successful autumn meeting in 2001, and that may have prompted something too. Anyway, he wrote to me, and I thought about it, and I thought I don't know anything about the rules of golf. I've been playing since I was 8. That's 35 years, and I've never even thought about the rules of golf. Um, and in a way, it shows that sometimes other people know you better than you know yourself. Um, Ian had alighted on the possibility that I might find a real affinity for the rules. And indeed, he was right. So I did the prep. I took the exam, passed quite comfortably, and then started process of being on the committee, refereeing events. I was lucky to be asked to be captain of Royal St George's for
I saw that. Yeah, right.
2002, which was an open year. Um,
Yes.
so I'd been given the heads
I'm going to
up.
test my memory. Was that Ben Curtis
It
or
was Ben
yeah?
Curtis, or Ben Who, as other people
Well,
say. But I did say to him as I handed him the gold medal and then the claret jug, I said, "You will remember this day for the rest of your life, and you will always remember it very fondly." Um,
for
and indeed,
sure.
I refereed him about 2 years later at St Andrews, and then I played with him in a pro-am 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but no, very nice man, Ben. But it was a surprise to him, and it was a surprise to anyone else.
Right, for sure.
Uh, but it was a hell of a good leaderboard on the Saturday
Oh, it
night,
was. I remember them all making runs at him. I totally, yeah.
uh, and um, and he came through. So all credit to him. And he did win a couple of tour
He
events. He
did.
did
He did.
play in the Ryder Cup. Um, but yes, I mean, for anyone captaining your home club and doing so in an open year when the world of golf looks at you, your club, your members, your course, uh, it is a phenomenal privilege to
Oh,
be
for
in
sure.
that position. So I remember that very, very fondly, and yeah, there's a lot of hard work by everyone to make these things go well, but they do, and they're
And I know you had a long involvement with the rules, as you said, that's how you got your start. You end up chairing, I think, the rules committee 2015 to 2019. I know you led the RNA team on the rules modernization project. We had mentioned off camera working with my partner and our mutual friend Mark Newell on that, who's running that from the USGA. Maybe talk about that rules modernization project. I think people be interested in that. I mean, in terms of what was the impetus for, what were you trying to achieve, and kind of why did they need to be modernized and how did they change?
well, you sort of almost have to cast your mind back to a lot of TV broadcast transmissions where commentators week in, week out were saying, "Oh, look at that situation. That rule is daft. Why does the guy get a penalty for this? Or why is this not clear? How can it take so long to sort this issue out? Did the ball move? Did it not move? Can't
Yeah.
these things be a little easier to work out?" You had a lot of people watching overnight in one part of the world, ringing in and
Yes.
saying, "I think so and so moved his ball on the 16th
Yes.
yesterday."
Yes. Yes.
Then the whether it was the European Tour, the USPGA Tour, someone would look at the footage and go, "Oh, no one saw that. Oh, well, yeah, the ball did move. So he gets a penalty for moving the ball. Did he replace it? No, he didn't. So that's two-shot penalty.
Right.
Oh, but by the way, he signed for the wrong score because he gave
Right.
himself a par on the hole, and actually he's got a 6. So if you sign for the wrong score, what happens? We throw you out the tournament, DQ.
Right. Right. Right.
And so again, these things were coming up.
Right.
And in April 2012, the RNA and the USGA sort of senior people, Peter Dawson, Alan Gormley, and people on the USGA side, including Mark, got together. I think Glenn Nager as
Yeah. Another lawyer who was running the USGA at one
indeed.
time. Right.
And we got together and we basically met in St Andrews and kicked around the idea of, could we actually look at these rules and see if we could make changes? Um, and having started the process, we then realized that actually no one had done a fundamental review of the rules, ever, in a way. it was 1892 that the R&A was first sort of asked by clubs in the UK to take charge of the rules within the UK. 1894, the USGA founded, and the first US Open 1895.
Right.
So, and the USGA created their own set of rules, but very much McDonald and others based on the R&A's rules. But essentially, the rules had grown up as being a set of local rules to help people travel and play consistently from one place to another. And then they'd evolved and gone from the original 13 rules into sort of 30 something or 40 something. And then, of course, decisions had started to be made, a body precedent, which as lawyers we sort of like law and we like precedents and we like
It's like case law. Exactly.
Case law we can refer back to. And so this body of history and decisions grew up. But at the time, you had 34 rules and 1,300 decisions.
Wow.
And some of the decisions contradicted what the rule book said.
Oh boy, yeah.
So that does not help.
No.
And I used to ask friends, I said, this rule book, do you have one? No, I might have had one a year or two ago, but my golf bag got wet and it all pulpy mess. I threw it in the bin, and I haven't bothered to get one since. Right. Okay. So you don't have a rule book. You don't know what's in it. But I said, if you did have one, could you find the answer? Oh, no, I could never find my way around the rule book. The order, there's no logic to it. And there wasn't. Bits and pieces had accumulated and been shoved in here or shoved in there, but it did not tie together in a logical, coherent fashion. Then you'd say, okay, well, I've got one here. And you talked about ball moving. So actually, that was Rule 18 in the old days. Here's Rule 18. Read that. And, intelligent people would read that and say, I don't know what that means. Lawyers, bankers, butchers and bakers, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People were, they were golfers. They were reading this and they didn't know what it meant. So we really had a problem. We had lots of incidents that were going on that commentators, respected journalists and commentators, were finding almost absurd, too penal, too late, too difficult, and not intuitive, too many penalties. You had a rule book that people didn't really follow, couldn't understand the wording, and anyway, it might be contradicted because there was this big decisions book that added to, overlaid what was in the so-called rule book. So we did decide that we could and indeed should try. So we got together. Mark led the team from the USGA side, and with his legal expertise was great. I led it from the R&A side. We had people from the tours, European Tour, John Paramore, Andy McPhee, great referees. We had Steve Rintoul from the PGA Tour, Tyler Dennis from the PGA Tour. Guys still very much involved in the game today, very formative with all the changes that are going on now. And then we had others, and of course the staff of both USGA and the R&A. And over time we added to the group, but so we started with about 12, I suppose, and I think by the end we may have been 18 or 19. But the idea was that we could draw in expertise from around the world and around the game, professional game, amateurs, people in different locations, people with experience of golf being played globally in lots of different ways and in lots of different levels of the game. And we basically started the project by saying, right, and you, here's your rule, go off and research it. And I want you to write a paper. And the paper starts with the history of this rule, when it came in, how it's been changed over time, then what you think is good or bad about this rule and examples. And then what do you think could be changed in this rule? Do we need it at all? And if so, how would it get changed? And then what's your personal recommendation? And people would write these up on all of the 34 rules. We each got, 2 or 3 to do. And then the next meeting, people would present their papers, talk to them, and we would debate and talk and talk and talk. And at one stage, I think the agenda papers were about 1,500 pages
Oh
long,
my gosh. Wow.
which was quite a task to manage, but we did. And we didn't really put pen to paper for almost 2 years.
Wow. Wow.
Because what we wanted to do, obviously we weren't all in the same place all the time, so
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
got together on occasion. We did a heck of a lot of work in between meetings, but we then got it all sort of together and we met and we talked things through, and then we went away and we did further work. But the idea was basically to try and resolve, at least in our heads, what should happen to each rule and whether some could get done away with completely. We went from 34 to 24 rules.
Right.
We went from very complicated legalistic language to plain English.
Right.
We completely reordered the book so that there is now a much, much more logical, coherent way of what's the game all about, what are some prime feelings and responsibilities of players and committees, then into the course, then into playing around and playing a hole, then the stuff that happens on the golf course in the normal course, whacking it, looking for it, finding it, treading on it, and then fiddling about with the course, play the course as you find it, play the ball as it lies. Fundamental principles. And we re-elevated those principles. We wrote purpose statements at the beginning of each rule. People hardly look at those. But if you are interpreting a rule which leads you in a direction, and then you check back at the purpose statement and you're in conflict, your interpretation's wrong. Because the purpose statement, a bit like European law, is this is what we're trying to do here. Remember that when you're interpreting the wording of a particular rule. So a lot of elements were, well, clever, but they were all designed to try and make life simpler and better for golfers. This was about improving the game. And the proof of the pudding is that you will watch, I don't watch that much golf now on TV, but if you did, you would hardly hear anyone criticize the rules
Yeah.
of golf.
Well, yeah.
Every weekend.
Yeah, I think that's all well said, and it was a great achievement to be sure. It was a lot of changes for those of us who knew the old rules, but definitely all in a great direction. And I can't help but think as I'm listening to this and have you describe it, this was over a long period of time, I think what 2012 to what 2019, and but
19, we brought them in, and
right,
Mark and I. So of course the staff really wanted to stick with the 4-year cycles,
right,
but Mark and I got the bit between our teeth and said, we can be ready at least a year earlier, and
yeah,
we came out in early 2017 with here's our consultative version. And
right,
we got people we went around the world with it. We had focus groups, we had people playing with some of the specimen rules, and then we got feedback from the whole world of golf. And we took that feedback on board.
yeah,
And then we revised from January or March 2018, that was the final version. And basically, we were able to publish that during 2018. So people had a good amount of time to get used
Right.
to them before they actually came into force on 1 January 2019. And I went to referee the first European tour events, one in Abu Dhabi and one in Dubai, literally the first, second week of January. And it was quite surreal in a way, now refereeing with these rules in force. We'd lived and breathed them, but until 31 December, all the old rules were in force. Suddenly, 1 January 2019, the new rules are in force. And your head was, all over the
Yeah,
place.
sure.
Well, like you, I did know the old rules, and now had to do the new rules, and it worked. I mean, it worked, and I think as time went on, we spoke to players on the practice ground. We spoke to them during practice rounds. We gave them sort of little seminars. We came up with a lot of digital materials, and those are on the websites of both
And
of the
those are fantastic. And the app for the phone. I mean, all of us now who
absolute.
do refereeing, I just do. I'm on the board of the Southern California Golf Association, so I'm nowhere near the kind of rules guru you are, but I do some rules work at our championships. And having the iPhone with the app on it and all the hyperlinks within it, it's so useful.
Yes, I mean, you really have no excuse for getting a wrong ruling.
That's
However,
true.
people are human beings, and
Yeah.
so people do get wrong rulings. But then we have mechanisms to try and sort them out. Sometimes it's too late. You just got to let it go. Sometimes you're able to correct it. Sometimes it's an administrative error by the committee. Yes, you can correct. But I mean, for a game that is played by 66 million people around the world in 150 different territories on terrain that is completely different
Right.
all over the hemispheres and latitudes. It is extraordinary that we have one set of rules and
Yeah.
basically they work.
Yeah.
Because, football is played on a football pitch, squash is played in a squash court, tennis on a tennis court, cricket on a cricket pitch. And they're all outdoor games. Well, not squash, but it's amazing the number of situations that can arise. But the rules do have an answer for everything.
They very much do. And the other thing I was just thinking about listening to you describe this when you started talking about it and talked about people calling in, to the tours. I can't help but think what sticks out in my mind are kind of during this period of time, two perhaps the most, I don't know if I should use the word famous or infamous, examples of that. I mean, I'm thinking it was 2013 when Tiger had the drop on 15 after he hit his shot in the water, and I think it may have been David Egger or somebody who noticed it, who's a very,
Yeah.
knowledgeable guy later, and Fred had to deal with that. And I know you're probably super familiar with all of that. And then the other one, of course, is, our back to our friend Mark Newell. And I've been thinking about this because we're going back to Oakmont
Right.
for our US Open, and it was in 2016. And I've always kidded Mark, because there's that, Mark never had his photo so widely distributed as he did that day on, I think it was the fifth green with him and Dustin. And, there was all those pictures. Dustin's a little larger than Mark, but, the pictures of the two of them standing next to each other. Did Dustin, putter touched because he takes that practice putting stroke so darn close to the ball. Was it close? So, I mean, two examples, right, of where, those were not great instances that had to get dealt with.
They were not, and you add to that Lexi Thompson as well in the
Oh, right. I forgot about the Dinah Shore, or yeah, the
2017
Misto, I
called
should
in
call
the
it.
next
Right.
day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Very,
great
very,
example.
very difficult time, and we had to work through all these things. We were feeling our way towards solutions, but we hadn't implemented those yet,
Right.
but it certainly
Right.
helped to guide us to
Yes,
having
I imagine it
good
did.
answers post 2017. Of course, 2017 was a year that I remember fondly with a
Oh, we're going to
certain.
get to that because he's
Okay.
my absolute favorite. I promise you, we're going to get to Jordan. But let me. I just one thing before we get to Birkdale and that unbelievable situation on 13 with Jordan, which I definitely want to talk to you about. I'm just curious. We've talked about you've been on the rules, we've talked about all the work you've done. Another area that maybe gets even more attention than, rules and people calling in about rules is equipment regulation.
Yeah.
And, the USGA is grappling with that now with the ball rollback. Once again, our friend Mark Newell, was one of the key authors of the distance study that the USGA did. He's a busy guy, as he always is, very productive. And and I'm just curious, kind of your take on all of this, and I'll set the stage for you, David, this way. I mean, you and I are not too far apart in age, and I just remember, when I was playing in high school and college with beautiful persimmon woods and balata balls, and man, I mean, you hit one of those guys off center, and you really paid the price. And it was so
Well,
much of a
but
smaller
the
club head.
center
Yeah.
was so the center was the size of your thumbnail.
Right, it was a
Um,
thumbnail, and of course,
where the
exactly.
sweet spot on modern drivers and indeed three woods rescues and all the rest
Yeah.
of it is much, much bigger and
Well,
therefore much more forgiving.
exactly, and that's what I want to ask you about because it's, there's a lot, and we've had Fred Purpall on, we've had Kevin Hammer on, we've had John Bodenhammer on. I know all folks you know well, talking about, the ball rollback stuff and which, in my humble opinion is kind of I'm happy to see anything done on equipment, but I mean, when I think of it, to your point, what you just said, the driver head is the sweet spot so much bigger. And for me, the way I go at it, David, is, if someone is a good enough athlete to swing as hard as a Bryson or whatever, and can hit that dead center sweet spot,
Yeah.
more power to them. But I think what we've seen is this, what people like to call the bomb and gouge strategy on the PGA Tour. It's such much bigger sweet spot that you can swing that hard because you can miss it a little bit and you don't pay nearly the penalty that you did with the old days with balata balls and persimmon drivers. And it just makes me wonder. I mean, there's lots of issues here. There's sustainability stuff for having to build golf courses. There's lots of things. It's a complicated question, but one aspect to me is that, I almost feel like it flattens the skill level. I mean, I sort of feel like someone like Rory, obviously does well enough. Now he's won the Grand Slam, but, he's such a generational driver of the golf ball. I kind of feel like, he would separate himself even more if we were playing, something like the old clubs. Anyways, I threw a lot on the table just now. I'm curious, how do you think about it and where do you see the whole equipment regulation going in our sport?
Well, you are right. It is a very big topic, and we could probably talk for an hour on it, even though I am not an expert in this field. I think there's a lot to consider. There are a lot of elements to it. You've got sustainability, as you say. You've got golf courses having to be changed, remodeled, extended. That leads into much more acreage, much more use of resource to look after it and maintain it, much more cost. That isn't generally a good thing for the game of golf. We want more people playing more places and enjoying it without having to reach for their pocket every time.
Right,
Um, Also, there's the historical element.
right.
You want people playing at the Royal St George's, St Andrews, maybe not Myopia Hunt Club, which is a lovely place,
It
but
is.
hosted four of the first half dozen US Opens. No, it's not going to host
But we
another
want to
US.
go back to Miriam. I know that's another place that you are very well familiar with, right?
Marion, under 7,000 yards or
Right,
just stretching to that.
right.
And is it tight and tough? Yes, it is. And so you've got old golf courses, but how do you set them up so that they are a challenge, they're exciting, and they deliver what the spectators want? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have good spectators, good TV, good engagement of the public, then the game does not progress. That is
Right.
an essential element. So, how do you engage the public? Well, a lot of people love standing behind Bryson and watching him absolutely rip it at 185-mile-an-hour ball speed, and Rory the same. And those guys will always be longer. They will
Right.
always hit it further
Exactly.
because
Right.
physically they just are capable of that. So you can ratchet the ball and equipment back, and they will still be the long hitters. But you have got to take into account and try and get a balance of history, sustainability, pace of play, and all these other elements, as
Exactly.
well as the athleticism and skill set of these players. Now, the skill set comes not only from their natural talent, also their amazing practice, their physical regime that they put themselves through, which you and I would not do for golf.
Yes, that's
Uh,
true.
but they are phenomenal athletes, and you have to take your hat off to them for that, because that does give them that capability to deliver that power and consistency.
Right.
But at the same time, you've got courses that can be overwhelmed. And that isn't necessarily a good thing, the bomb and gouge, as you referred to. But a lot of it can be managed perhaps with clever architecture. Where do you bring in the fairways? Where do you position bunkers or one bush, one tree? The whole point, go back to Alistair Mackenzie, go back to Colt, go back to the earlier architects were incredibly good at fooling a player
Yeah, for sure.
standing on the tee. You would stand on the tee, you would see the way the hole went, and you'd say, can I carry that bunker on the left? Now, you didn't have a distance rangefinder thing, so
No.
you didn't know exactly, only
Right.
200 yards away. But it sure looked as though it was a heck of a good shot to carry that left bunker. But
Yeah.
that was the perfect line compared to going out on the right and
Right.
giving yourself a slightly different, less good angle. So clever architects and clever course setup allows you to do this,
Yeah.
um, as well as hole location, speed of how the course is playing, how you've mowed, USGA and others. They mow it back to against the direction
Well,
of play.
Augusta's famous for doing that. Yeah,
So the
exactly.
ball sort
Right.
of digs in a little bit, doesn't run
Yeah.
out as much as it would do. And sometimes, yes, they do it the other way, deliberately to get them to run on into trouble, or you have a burn or a stream crossing. 10th at Carnoustie last 2018. Sergio and Bryson both drove in the burn in front of the green. It's a 425-yard hole. They knocked it 390 into the burn. Neither of them were very complimentary to me or the R&A as we were walking up to find their balls in there. But that's what you get as a referee. You
Yeah,
sometimes
that is definitely what you get.
and so I think that I am in favour of a ball rollback, only a few percent, which will affect us, the amateurs, virtually not at all. It will affect some of the elite amateurs, but they will know they're moving into the professional world. They will work with that new type of ball, and it'll probably go 330, not 360. Okay, is that much of a big deal? I wouldn't think so. Um, the other thing is driver heads and MOI and forgiveness in a sense, which is what you were referring to.
Yeah.
If you made the forgiveness be that much less, only a little bit again, the freedom with which the players swing it would be impacted. If
Exactly.
they swing less fast, the ball goes less far.
Exactly.
1 mile an hour equals 2 yards. So swing it 170, not 180, and you've suddenly saved yourself 20 yards.
Right.
If the ball comes back 20 yards, and their own inclination how fast they swing it comes back, then you're in the 310 ballpark. And
Exactly.
then you're not that far away from where the game has been for years. I,
Exactly.
I remember once watching a film. Claude Harmon was talking about Bobby Jones, and he said Bobby's control of the club and his swing and his speed and his body movement was so perfect that Bobby could basically hit a driver anywhere between 240 and 320. And that was in the 1920s, all right?
Wow. Wow.
Nearly 100 years ago.
Right.
And that was without manicured fairways.
Right.
Uh, but of course, there wouldn't be so much irrigation. So distance has always been a factor. Skill is always a factor. It's about getting the right compromise, but we have to carry people with us. So the R&A and the USGA are working hard with the tours, with the PGA of America, who both expressed reservations.
Oh,
Um,
yes. I had Derek Sprague on a couple of weeks ago. That's a fair way of characterizing what he said.
well, yeah, but I mean, I think they want to be brought inside the tent. I think they
Yes,
want
which
to
he
understand it.
feared of him. He said that.
I think they
Exactly.
want to
Yeah,
understand what the technology and the testing has been. How valid is that? Do they
yeah,
agree? Can they provide some insights here? And we're all about working for the good of the game. Um,
absolutely.
and therefore, I think everyone is, I hope, on the same page. Players likewise, that we want the game to thrive. We want the game to continue to be exciting, enjoyable, bring in new blood, and let the people who are playing for money in their livelihoods show off how brilliant they are. That will always be the case if governing bodies do it right.
Agreed.
Um, and I think that it's going in the right direction.
So
It's
do you see a possibility then? I'm very hard to hear and agree with everything you're saying, that in addition to the ball, they may look at the club and the sweet spot, or however you want to describe it, that may be part of what's in the
MMI and all
future.
that kind of
Yeah,
thing. I think it's work that's being done. Um,
that's
I'm
great.
I'm not close to it, in the sense that I'm on the general committee and I'm
Right,
on
right, right, right.
etc. at the R&A, but the equipment standards guys are the ones leading the charge with the
Yeah,
USDA equipment standards people, and they're very clever people. So
yes,
I'm gonna,
they are
I'm,
indeed.
I'm gonna let them do their stuff. I wasn't a scientist, and
Yeah,
we'll see what people come up with. But as I said earlier, you've got to bring people with you, and you've got to show them that you've taken account of pretty much everything. And here's where you want to draw the line.
yeah,
And it's about persuading people that you've done that right. The
yeah,
process was right, the inputs were right, and here's the decision line. And we are going back to a statement from 2003, which did basically try to draw a line in the sand about distance and about the ball. And so it's not that we have changed our principles. We wrote a principle 22 years ago. We're abiding by that principle, and we've had it front and center for everyone to read for a very long time.
yeah. No, well said. I do remember that. So let me sort of, as we get towards the end here, I'm saving the best for last for me. I'm a big Jordan Spieth fan. I will tell you, I've had the privilege only once in my life of going to the Masters, and it happened to be in 2016. And just a little quick story, somebody who had been there before, and this is, to the credit to the incredible tournament that the Augusta National puts on. is he said to me, look, you got to get one of these special folding chairs, doesn't have arms that can fit and everything. He said, and just you can put it wherever you want, put your business card in the back and go run around the course, do whatever you want, and come back and it'll be untouched. And so I said, when I got there that Sunday, I went as soon as we got on the grounds early, I put my chair behind the 12th tee,
Oh,
where you could sort of
okay. Yeah.
see that as well as the 11th green, a great viewing spot. And I went
Yeah.
all over. I just, had a wonderful time. I was there Saturday and Sunday, and I went back there when we were a couple, there's like three or four groups left to come down 11 and then 12. And it was a sea of people. And there
Yeah.
was my chair just beautifully untouched in the middle of it. I love that. Anyways, so I was there, of course, when Jordan, unfortunately, I think he actually had bogeyed 11, but then, of course, makes seven on 12. And it was just heartbroken. I thought for sure he was going back to back wins. And anyways, and Danny Willett played a great round, and credit to him, but that was just unbelievable. So you have to have that in the back. I relate that not just because I witnessed it, and witnessed him hit two in the water there on 12, but you can't help but think of that. I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's thinking of it when we get to 13 at the Open at Royal Birkdale the next year.
Yeah.
And he hits a drive right of right.
Well, he
And
drops the club and puts his head on
yeah,
his hand.
exactly. But I want
Yeah.
you're with him. You're one of the great moments in Open history. You're there. I remember watching this like it was yesterday on TV because it was an enormous amount of elapsed time with him, Kuchar waiting and what George. But talk to us. Tell us what happened because I know he ends up dropping the ball on the driving range if I'm remembering right. But talk about kind of what happened because you're right in the middle of it.
Well, let me start by reprising your 2016 memory.
Sure.
Mark Newell and I were sitting as referees at 13 Green.
Yes, and in fact, I
Yep.
went to Mark and I met him that day. I remember I didn't know you were there, but Mark came
Yep.
over. I talked to him earlier in the day. I remember he was on 13.
So,
But go
so,
ahead.
so we all know the Augusta scoreboards,
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
traditional approach.
very, very.
And so he has hit a lovely drive into the perfect spot, and then the scoreboard updates to show the seven at
Yeah,
the 12th, and all the crowd round 13 just go, yeah, can't be right. Was it 7 on 11? No, it's a 7 on 12. God. Anyway, he hits the perfect drive. He hits a 4 iron onto the green and he two putts for the most straightforward, excellent birdie
yeah,
that any cool headed last group player could do. And yet he has just scrambled his brain completely with a
right.
seven
A
at the 12th.
seven, right.
That if you and I had shot a seven at the 12th in the club jamboree or whatever, we would both be completely wiped
Yeah,
out.
absolutely. You're right. You're
But
so right.
Jordan has this bounce back
Yes,
capability
he does.
that is an extraordinary part of his character,
Yes,
and
I agree.
it's a wonderful thing. Hence, why I'm now going to talk
Yes,
about
yes, perfect
13.
setup. That's right.
So it's the great privilege of the chairman of the Rules of Golf Committee to referee the last group on the Sunday of the championship. And my last one was with Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood,
Oh, at Portrush.
2019
Yeah,
at Port
yeah.
Rush, and we're back there this year.
Yes, yes,
An Irishman winning at Port Rush was pretty cool.
yes.
At 13, he had a three-shot lead when he started the day. He's quite nervous. He doesn't play very well. Kuchar comes out the traps well. After the ninth, they're tied, I think, and he Jordan has three putted the ninth, and he makes an amazing 4 at 11 with one of his ups and downs that no one else in the game could do. He then makes straightforward par at 12, but Kuchar drives first and puts it into the perfect space, which that day with a left to right wind was the right semi, because it gave you a better angle to the pin. And Jordan had been talking with Michael Greller,
Yep.
lovely man,
Yeah.
and they'd all agreed, all four, and Matt and his caddy and Jordan and Michael had agreed the right semi is the place to go. So he blitzes it miles right. And thus begins 17 minutes of
Yes.
interesting rules elements.
Yes. I want to,
I don't
yes.
have time and won't talk you through it, but there are about 12 or 13 different rules elements to that ruling, starting from does he play a provision? I get over the airwaves, my radio, someone's found it straight away. Someone's found it. And I think it's hit someone who's standing on the top of this ridge and it's come back off the person. And so I'm not that surprised when they say, yeah, they think they found his ball. Okay. So I say, Jordan, they think they found it. So he then goes about 75 yards off the tee. And then I get, oh, they haven't found his ball. They found another.
Oh boy.
And I say, well, I'm walking with Jordan, and I say, actually, Jordan, they haven't found it, but we've got to carry on now. And the marshal says, oh, he can go back and play a provision. I said, no, under the rules then applicable, you can't. We've gone more than 50 yards off the tee. You can't go back and
Yes.
play.
There's so many things this
Now you
triggered. Yeah.
can, but you
Yeah.
couldn't. Anyway, right. So basically, but lots of things are happening. People are jumping up and down. They're searching in the wrong place. They're finding golf balls everywhere, but it is not in the right place. So I haven't started the stopwatch. I'm liaising with David Rickman, who's the chief referee, RNA staffer for 30 years, and who's my guru in my ear, as it were. And he said, no, David, you start the watch when you think they're in the right place. Okay, good. Anyway, by the time we get there, my observer, Roger Bathurst, who is now the chairman of rules, they have found the ball and they think it's his. And Jordan goes straight to it. He says, yeah, that's my ball. I said, do you want to mark it, lift it, check it really is your ball? No, definitely my ball. Okay, well, fine. End of stopwatch. We're good. And there is this big sandhill that Jordan and I ran up and down about 6 times. And he's a younger man than me. He was 23 at the time. I was what was it, 7, 8 years ago? I was, anyway, nearly 60. But we get up there, and my first thought is, where are we? Because when you referee these events, we do prepare jolly well.
I'm
We
sure.
the entire golf course really widely. We look at everything. We've got all our additional local rules. We've got our course planners. We're looking at all sorts of situations that could occur. No one has been anywhere near this area of the golf course. Because when I get up and I get onto this sand and I look for the hole, I think it should be there. No, it's over there. We are miles right, miles right. Indeed, later I was told we were 85 yards right.
That's right.
That is a long way right of target, especially for a professional. So anyway, immediately, Jordan has said, I don't like the look of that. So I'm saying to Jordan, do you want to know what your options are? Yes, please. Well, what do you think you want to do? Well, I think it's probably unplayable. Okay, fine. Well, look, you can go back to the tee. No, I'm not doing that. Go 2 club lengths, not nearer the hole. No, that's not doing much for me. Well, you can go back on the line. So we're immediately looking at back on the line. Well, the line is the flag through where
Through the ball, right.
is and on to wherever, almost infinite line.
Right.
And I immediately think to myself, well, if he goes, more than 40, 50 yards back, we're on practice ground. God, I haven't read anything about practice ground. David Bonsall to David Rickman, what's the status of the practice ground? And there's a bit of a stunned silence
I'm
from
sure. No one would have thought of this, right? You would never thought. Yeah.
The practice ground. Yes, David. What's the state of the practice ground? Well, it's in bounds. Oh, okay, good. What's the status of the equipment trucks? I haven't got a visual, he says. No, you don't need a visual, David. You know where you put all the equipment trucks. They're in I don't know, 6 of them, all on the practice ground
Right.
on that right side as you look at it from where the players were practicing.
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, are we going to treat them, this is a bit technical, are we going to treat them as single, each one is a single TIO, temporary immovable obstruction, and you take relief from each one of them, or are we going to treat them as multiple units, single TIO? Ooh, pause. I think multiple units, single TIO would be a good idea. I said, I totally agree, David, because I could see that, we could have a nightmare of going around these different trucks, behind them, within them. But those two questions, practice ground and what we're doing with the equipment trucks, answers the rules question. Because now I'm able to say to Jordan, here are the options. You decide where you drop on this line, but here's where I think the line goes. And I basically said to him, you see that tailor-made truck? The M, capital M of tailor-made, that from where we're standing now on this hill with your ball there, that M, that's the line. Do you agree? Yes. So we then set that line. And I said, I'm not allowed to make the decision. I'm not allowed to guide him. It's not my job. It's his ball. He's playing it. I'm not the professional, but I am his referee to give him his options. But I can see pretty quickly that if he drops it in a certain place, then for unplayable, one penalty shot, and then he's dropping it and he's got interference from the equipment trucks, that he could be dropping into thick rough to take relief from the equipment trucks, or depending if he went further back, he would be dropping onto the practice ground. So I'm explaining to him that it sort of depends where you drop it, Jordan, because you see how this fence goes. Yeah, right. Well, look, if you drop quite near up this end, then the nearest point of free relief from the trucks is going to be there in the other side of that fence, in that rough over there. Okay. But if you go a little further back, anywhere on this line, then the relief would take you onto the practice ground. Yes, right, fine. So he's a smart cookie. He's 23 years old. He gets it, and off we go. And then we wind up in the middle of the Titleist truck. And
yes, that's the famous picture with the Titleist
he
fan,
plays
right?
Titleist.
Yeah.
I play Titleist.
Yeah, yeah, so do I.
And he has got the ball in his hand. Michael is nowhere to be seen. And we should be physically dropping the ball. But anywhere within under the rules then, if you drop the ball, we didn't have relief areas, didn't have reference
Right,
point.
right. You didn't have all that, right.
And a 1 club length relief area, or it would be, yeah. But anyway, if you dropped then, and it rolled more than 2 club lengths away, you would do it again, and then you would place. But we knew where the nearest point of free relief would be from the trucks. But I didn't want him to drop this ball underneath a Titleist truck on corrugated walkway because that ball could squirt under a truck. The two of us were scrambling around trying to find it. Uh,
Sure.
I don't know where Michael is, and not a good look. So basically, I got agreement from David Rickman again, and basically it was, I'm deeming you, Jordan, to drop it right here. And we're now taking that as your point. That's the unplayable ball drop under penalty. Now we're taking, and that situation is finished. We're now taking free relief from the equipment trucks. And we're going this way. And so we did. And John Paramore then appeared. And basically, John and I together did the TIO relief. And would you believe it? Not only are there half a dozen equipment trucks, but there's a flag on a flagpole, and the flag is blowing with the wind. So that is also a TIO. And we've got to take relief from the flagpole and the flag. So that is our line where the end of the TIO is. And then you have your one club, the corridor, and then you drop in the next club length. So there were just so many different things that went on. And apparently the editor for NBC was apparently jumping up and down saying 17 minutes, 17 minutes. No one's hit a shot for 17 minutes. It's the most exciting thing I've ever transmitted. I mean, so yes, very famous ruling. We all know what happened after that. He gets his bogey, and I am standing at the back of the green. And I know we're way over time. John Paramore's already said, I'm going to have to ask you guys to speed up. I said, I totally understand that. I'll speak to Jordan, etc. Or you can, but I know, and we'll be pushing. But he comes up to me, having made his bogey, and
Which was, I just interject for people to remember, a phenomenal bogey. He had to make and get up and down
yeah,
from when he hit that shot from the driving range short. He has to get up. That was not an easy up and down. That was a
no, he
tremendous
told a
bogey.
9-footer for a bogey, and he's
Right,
now one behind.
right,
He's now one behind. Kuchar is in the lead with 5 to play.
right,
And by the way, makes 2 birdies in the next 4 holes.
right.
But but Jordan comes up to me and he shakes me by the hand and says, David, thank you for all your help with that. That is
Wow.
phenomenally composed.
Wow, it
For
sure
a
is.
boy of 23 playing like a man. And I thought, whoa, you have some personality. I was
I love
very,
that.
very impressed by that. I didn't know what was going to happen then. He didn't know what was going to happen. Matt Kuchar didn't know what was going to happen. He got hit by a steam train.
It was
Birdie,
just
eagle,
unbelievable.
birdie, birdie.
Yeah.
And he wins, and I'm delighted for him. But we'll see each other again, hopefully, 2 years' time.
Yeah, birdie almost a hole in one, but birdie and then the eagle. I mean, just it was
Six
incredible.
iron at 14, and then eh, well, another thing people don't realize is he hit driver off the 15th tee. Having hit driver off the 13th and tried to hit a little fade, and he was ecstatic. Win from the right. He'd hit a fade, gentle fade that had gone up into the wind, then been brought back and just sort of drawn a touch and finished short of a fairway bunker at 300 odd yards. And he shakes the club at Michael, says, that was a fade, Michael. That was a fade. He's so sparky, but he was just so committed. So he nearly holds in one at 14, makes the putt. And then he, having hit the last one 85 yards right, he takes the same shot again and executes perfectly.
Yeah,
And
it
the 3-wood, and then the go get it, Michael.
go get it. The famous eagle putt. Go get it. I know. It's remarkable. Well, I was so I had not realized until we set up this call that you were the referee there, and like I said, I'm a big Jordan fan. I remember it vividly, and that was a fantastic description. Thank you, David, for sharing that. And thank you for spending the time with us today. This has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to where we go with equipment and, of course, going back to Portrush for the Open. And who knows, I mean, we've talked about the career Grand Slam. Be kind of interesting if that's what Rory needs to get the calendar Grand Slam is in Ireland.
Well, he's the only person who can do
He's
it.
the only
So,
person who could do it. That's always the true thing. It's only the Masters champion who could
and
do
we've
it.
had Bobby Jones's impregnable quadrilateral.
Quadrilateral, right,
We've
exactly.
had Tiger Slam, which is simply astonishing.
Yeah,
No one will ever do that. Um, and we have not had a professional single year Grand
right.
Slam.
Well,
And
he's Quail Hollow. He's had a lot of success at Oakmont's a big course. We'll see. I mean, it's a very, very as you say, it's never been accomplished. The Tiger Slam is sort of as close to having four in a row, but lots of exciting things await us as we get into the season.
well, I think that's right. I think golf's in a good place. I think it was very good for golf that Rory won
Agreed.
at Augusta, not only for him personally, but I think it's very good for the game.
Agreed.
And I think it's energized a lot of people as to what this year might bring. I think golf is in a good place, and thank goodness, because we elevate sport. It drives us. It's fantastic. It's tantalizing game, very frustrating, very rewarding. But sport, changes people's lives for the better usually, and that we can enjoy this year with that prospect is rather nice.
I totally agree. David, thank you again so much for your time. A pleasure chatting with you. Hope to talk again soon.
You take care. Good to be with you.
Thank you.